What's happening, guys and girls? Acrinator here, and welcome to a video that I've been mulling over for around the last year and a half. Today I'll be giving a review for a game that I've had a roller coaster relationship with. Before we dive into it, I want to point out the obvious. I know better than anyone that there's not really a way to give a game as large as this a proper review, but this is more for my own closure. With all of that out of the way, let's get this review of Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft over with. For those of you who don't know, and I have no idea how you wouldn't know, but for those who don't, Hearthstone is a free online trading card game developed and published by Blizzard Entertainment. I first heard about Hearthstone directly from the source, Blizzard, when they were hyping up their new game. As someone who gave up Yu-Gi-Oh! Half a decade prior, I had promised myself I wouldn't get involved in yet another TCG trap. And yet, here we are. You see, Blizzard set the ultimate bait, something someone like me just couldn't resist, a promotional mount. At the time, I hadn't had any flying horse mounts in World of Warcraft, and it was just too easy to get from playing a few games of Hearthstone. I can easily win 3 games, I thought to myself. This is too good to pass up. Hook, line, and sinker. I signed up for the beta and got into it relatively early so that I could find the easiest way to build a solid deck. Ironically, I gelled pretty well with the playstyle for the Druid class, much like in the MMORPG for which Hearthstone is inspired. Getting my mount was going to be cake, and it was. I won my first 3 games by landslides. Before I get into the body of this review, I'd like to point out some things that I know damn well are going to make up the majority of complaints about this video. I'm not going to be talking that much about the mechanics of this game like I usually do for most formal reviews. That's because there really aren't that many mechanics to go over. It's a trading card game, so however complex the meta is solely depends on how the players use the cards. Instead, I'm going to be talking for quite a while about the aspect of Hearthstone that by far makes up the majority of what it has to offer, the community. Player interactions, while limited, is the thing that most people will spend their time on in the game. And while I may come off as ranty at times, just know that the original versions of this script were much less forgiving of Hearthstone's downsides. But before I let my mind go off on its own, let me just say that the mechanics and game design that have gone into Hearthstone are very impressive. The card pool is constantly being updated and added to, and it now has quite the respectable accumulation. There is definitely the occasional broken strategy, but the most egregious examples don't usually last long before being rebalanced. Happy now that I've talked about the mechanics a bit? Probably not. Most of you watching this are more than likely Hearthstone fans and are going to hate this review because of how I'll speak of the player base. Regardless, let's get into the part that I'm guessing is going to piss a whole lot of you off. I can truthfully say that Hearthstone has the most toxic community I've ever had the displeasure of being a part of. I know what you're going to say, but don't you play WoW? And yes, I do. And I won't deny that many of the games I play have their dark little corners for the trolls to creep. The difference is that it's nearly impossible to avoid that corner in Hearthstone. It feels like wherever I go, the vast majority of Hearthstone's players are just people that I don't want to play with. And before you bother typing your comment, if you don't enjoy the game, just don't play it anymore. I don't, and I haven't for little over a year now. I check back in every so often, but nothing ever changes besides subtleties in the meta and a few new cards. Why do you think the entirety of the footage for this review is from the solo adventures? There's just an abundance of unoriginal, immature, and sour characters queuing up on a regular basis. I got so fed up with playing against net deck after net deck, I decided to make my own deck from scratch. You may remember that I did a video on my old Demonic Gateway Warlock deck a while back. A little trial I ran involved me running up as far as I possibly could on the ranked ladder. First with a completely unoriginal Zulok deck, and then with my self-made Warlock deck. Now, I am no way an expert. Honestly, I'm somewhere in the field of average, but I was really pleased with the results of this 2-month-long experiment. I ended the month of Zulok at rank 11, while my Demonic Gateway lock made it all the way up to rank 9. Certainly not night and day, but a big enough variation for my own self-vindication to run wild. After the back-to-back monthly grinds as opposed to my typical casual play, I was pretty burnt out. I seriously give credit to the professionals who grind this shit out consistently. I played on and off for a few more weeks, but I just didn't have it in me anymore. I wasn't getting passionately livid at unjust losses, but I wasn't feeling any amount of excitement for wins either. One day in early May of 2015, I matched up against someone while I was trying out a few minor changes to my original Warlock deck. They were running some weird variation of Patron Warrior. It was some kind of early, unperfected version of Control Patron. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen at the time, and I felt something that I'd been missing for months. Fun. The match was incredible, and I have so many regrets about not recording it and not friend requesting the player after the match. Almost every turn, we'd turn the tides of battle and rearrange the field in our favor just to have everything switch around again for the very next turn, and this led on until we each had less than 10 cards left in our deck. It ended with me barely losing, and feeling absolutely ecstatic about it. This was the experience that I'd been yearning for, and to top it all off, the opponent was cordial. From there, I decided that nothing could possibly top that match, and that was the last time that I seriously played Hearthstone. Every time since then has been out of curiosity about what major changes were brought with a new card set, and I just can't bring myself to care about the game the way I once did. Hearthstone is such a weird game for me, and it's really been more of a learning experience. More than a source of entertainment, it's shown me what to look out for when it's time to give something up for my own sanity. Hearthstone is the only game to date that has been capable of reducing me to shaking with fury, and while it sucked to be there in the moment, it's much better in hindsight. Without the Hearthsteed mount rewarding me for my time in Hearthstone, I probably would have glossed right over this massively successful TCG, instead of putting in way more time than I'm willing to admit. Towards the middle of the game's lifespan for me, I even began neglecting the MMO for which Hearthstone gets its inspiration, although that could also be blamed on the content drought in Draenor at the time. It's all of the aspects for which I've listed throughout this video, and many other unmentioned experiences that lead me to give Hearthstone a 9.2 out of 10. I know, you're probably all wondering where the hell that number came from after all the complaining. Let me explain. Yes, much of my time spent in Hearthstone was painful, but I'm not so arrogant as to let that paint over the fact that it's a solid game. It's constantly updating, given new mechanics, being refined, and has an almost infinite number of possibilities for what you can do. Efficiency aside, there are a lot of crazy and hilarious ideas you can come up with when you let your mind wander to something other than winning. I stand by what I've said about the community, and that does account for the majority of the 8/10 of a point taken away from the perfect score, but I wouldn't be so remiss as to allow that to lower the score for what would otherwise be a good product. While the community is the largest part of the Hearthstone experience, there are things like solo adventures and playing with friends that mitigate the toxicity. While I can't outright recommend this game, I'm not recommending it either. Honestly, you should know about Hearthstone at this point in time, and whether or not it's something you'd want to try. If you haven't, well, what rock have you been living under for the past couple of years? And where can I get one? No, but seriously, it's widely known what kind of gameplay Hearthstone has to offer, as well as the maturity level of its community. All I can say is, play at your own risk. If you do happen to be interested in trying out Hearthstone, you'll be happy to know that it's available for free on PC and mobile devices. Short of wanting to play it on consoles, you can play it pretty much anywhere. Well, that's all I've got for this review, and it feels nice to finally be done with Hearthstone content on this channel for good. If you enjoyed this video, which I tend to doubt, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, well, too bad. This is the third time I've wrote this damned script, and I'm not doing it again. If you want to see more game reviews like it, or preferably a bit more formal, and overall less bitchy, maybe even subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Links for my social media and whatnot are in the description below. And as for the comment question, what's the highest rank you've ever achieved in the Hearthstone ranked ladder? The highest I ever got was rank 5 with a ramp druid. Anyways, that's all the time I've got for today, so until next time, don't die.